wonder, has there been a more emotional, thrilling, memorable day's racing in Sydney? Max Presnell, what do you think?
No, I think we left Rosehill yesterday drunk on octagonal adrenaline.
Obviously, Keith Hillier, you did too, because I look at your tie this morning, the Big O. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Bruce, and I love this horse, the Big O, and racing owes him so much too. Sensational performance of octagonal. Can't wait to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah, well, John Hawkes is with us, as he was a few weeks ago, when he had a go at you, Keith, because you reckon Saintly would have beaten him down in Melbourne, but that's another story. John, just on octagonal before we go to the slipper, is this his best before? I mean, what gave you the bigger thrill? The Cox Plate, the big wins as a 3-year-old in Sydney last year, the Chipping Norton, the Australian Cup, or this one?
I think they're all different, Bruce. You know, I mean, they're different highs. I mean, I think the emotion yesterday was, you know, just the crowd and just the euphoria for after the Australian Cup. I mean, they're just completely different. I mean, I suppose the Cox Plate is still one that'll stick in my mind. He wasn't a champion then. All the others, he was a champion.
Bruce, can I just tell you about some stats I had quickly looked at this morning? Octagonal has won 3 races by a half head, 2 by a long head, 2 by a half neck, 1 by a long neck. He's won 8 races, 7 at Group 1 level, by the total margin of a distance less than the length of Max Presnell's trouser belt.
That's not that big.
I think the incredible part about octagonal is he goes into a slow-motion replay for the finish, as he did yesterday, with most people thinking that he's got beaten, that he's just gone down. He comes out of the slow-motion replay, not only winning, but winning decisively. The margin yesterday was a half head. Most at Rosehill thought he went down. What did you think, John?
Yeah, I even thought on the replay, which I watched on the TV, I thought he sort of may not have got the bob in. I was hoping, but I thought the other was bobbed. Was the world's richest 2-year-old race on yesterday?
Yeah, it was, and John won it. I mean, John Hawkes yesterday trained this remarkable double, with Guineas winning the Golden Slipper and Octagonal winning the Mercedes. You said, John, words to this effect, it was the day you'd been waiting for in racing. Well, I've been in, you know, the game a long time, Bruce, and you know, that's what you build to those sort of days. But you know, you win one of them, you think, oh, well, that's great, but just Octagonal winning the Mercedes and then the Slipper, well, it's a race I've wanted to win ever since I've been in Sydney, and it all to come together on one day, well, I don't think it can get any better than that. No, let's have a look at the Slipper. Remarkable in the fact it was basically incident-free in terms of interference, and also remarkable in the finish. Now, the 4 to watch are the 4 out in front.
They're off in the Slipper. And a little slow to move is Sports. You call Sir dwelt, and so did Decide. Little Regal Chamber has begun like a rocket from an outside gate. Guineas is brilliantly away. As quickly into stride is General Nadim, who's straight into the box seat, followed by Encounter, Nimble Feet. Decide is making ground quickly along the fence after that slow start. There was a little bit of tightening there. Just behind those Sports, followed by Rose of Danehill, Vocalist between horses. Then You Call Sir Fraud, followed by Knowledge, who's in front of about 3. And they are Special Dane, Cove and all the chat. 600 out as they near the turn. Regal Chamber the leader. Guineas is second. General Nadim third. Encounter fourth, getting a perfect run. Rose of Danehill 3 deep. Then Nimble Feet Decide on the fence, followed by Sports. Rose of Danehill made the bend awkwardly, and Knowledge is giving them about 8 lengths as they turn for home. Regal Chamber giving plenty of cheek in the straight. Guineas on the outside throwing down the gauntlet. The General looking for the rails run. Encounter on the extreme outside with the last run at them. General Nadim got right through on the fence to join Regal Chamber, Guineas and Encounter on the outside. Encounter and Guineas. Encounter has run off the track, is lunging again as they hit the line, and oh, it's close. Guineas or Encounter. Don't know what happened to Encounter near the line. He speared off the track and it might cost him the Slipper, but there's nothing in it. General Nadim probably third.
Great call there by John Tapp. He was a bit stiff, Encounter, and Clary. Yeah, I think you might say that, Bruce, but then again, we had to do a little bit of work from our barrier. He had a cushy run behind us, so he had his chance. Darren even said he got ahead in front of us, and he didn't really start to duck around until the real pressure come on. We had the pressure and we handled it 100%.
I'll tell you what, Johnny, watching that race, I think the jockey of the gods, he doesn't ride alone. That was going to be Encounter Slipper, but he kicked it off and gave it to Guineas. It was an incredible finish, wasn't it?
No, I think the incredible part about the Slipper was the incredible start, because Guineas was able to get a very cushy run early. But here, just note the run here of Encounter. Encounter ducks away there, but Dye straightens him up, goes out after Guineas. This is blowtorch time, and what happens? That is where Encounter lost the race. It was a pressure test, as John said, like when you had to dig deep to find out just where the stamina and guts was. Well, Guineas found it. Did Encounter.
Any other hard luck stories? It seemed to be a truly run race in terms of no interference. Rosa Danehill didn't handle things all that well, but General Nadim had his chance, didn't he? I remember Mick Diplin saying you couldn't compare these two. He'd ridden Guineas, he'd ridden General Nadim, and he said, hey, the General's a lot better than Guineas, I can tell you. Yeah, well, as I said, Mick's getting a bit old. He hasn't rode a winner for a couple of years. So I suppose, you know, those sort of thoughts you come across occasionally.
Let's be fair. Like, I don't think General Nadim was quite on his game yesterday, but I still don't think he would have won the slipper. I think he was a shade disappointing. I think the key to the slipper too is getting him to peak on the day. John Hawkes did.
Different slipper, 35.61, the slowest half in a decade or more, and for the first time ever in the slipper, the 4 horses around the bend were the first 4 home.
No, I think that was the key to the slip. I mean, we drew bad, needed a little bit of luck. They didn't go hard the first couple of furlongs, and I think in the end that's really what won the race for us. And General Nadim, I thought he'd lead and make everything work, but they were happy to let us come across. There's not much incentive to try the Triple Crown in Sydney. I mean, the size is worth a couple of $100,000, the Champagne a couple of hundred after 2 mil. Are you going to keep Guineas going? He'll possibly run in the sires, and I think that'll sort of most probably be it, Bruce. But surely if they want to promote the Triple Crown, those 2 races should have greater stake money.
Of course they should.
You know,
we should have greater stake running all around. But where does it come from, Bruce? It's certainly not going to come from the New South Wales state government coffers. I think you mentioned that in one of your addresses yesterday to the audience. Well, I did, Max. I mean, Victoria just going ahead in leaps and bounds. I mean, you know, like even the Blue Diamond, like it's starting to roll the Golden Slipper now. Well, it was worth $1 million, and then the size was worth $750 in Victoria. That's what I mean. So, I mean, really, and Victoria's only going to get, you know, stronger and stronger prize money, and Sydney needs something to, well, to keep up with them. Well, Octagonal, the Mercedes. This race was run about an hour and a half, I think, before the Golden Slipper. He looked to be in a bit of trouble when we picked him up. He's in that hot pink cerise colours on the inside, but Dye was very good.
On the top turn at the 900 mark, Circles of Gold joined by Magnet Bay. Now they're putting on some speed. In 3rd place, Istadard, who's had a dream run, followed by Flak Jacket. Then the Bandette Arcady, followed by Campaign Warrior. He's back on track as moving forward with Ebony Grove. Octagonal is awkwardly placed. He's cluttered up near the fence, has nowhere to go. He got shuffled back a bit there, followed by Nothing Like a Dane, and then Skybow and Arctic Sentinel. Standing room only on the turn. They are packed up very tightly. He's about to shut into the clear on Occy, but he's giving them a fair start as they turn for home. Magnet Bay and Circles of Gold. Istadard looming up to them from Arcady. Octagonal's into the clear. He's starting to wind up here. He comes, the big O down the outside. Istadard, Arcady, but Octagonal is getting to them with every stride. Arcady put his head in front. Octagonal is lunging as he always does. Istadard fighting back. Arcady and Octagonal. Oh, Arcady maybe. Arcady maybe a nose to Octagonal, who tried his heart out. Istadard a terrific run 3rd.
Well, I think a lot of us agreed. You mentioned earlier, Arcady. What a day Golden Slipper Day has been for Octagonal. 2nd in the Slipper 3 years ago. Won the Mercedes last year and won it again. He's 2-1-1 on the biggest day in Sydney racing. Well, that's the sort of horse he is, Bruce. I mean, you know, he's always not at his knockers, but people sort of, oh, well, you know, he's beatable. But the thing about him, he wins. They're only short, but he wins. You talked about that slow motion and that replay, Max, and his will to win. This was the key, I think, that Dye was able to get him between Arcady and Ebony Grove without really hurting him, push his way clear, and then have the chance to run down a very good horse in Arcady.
Yes, certainly Arcady is the improver. Arcady won the Queen Bian Cup only recently, but have a look at this. This is a magnificent performance. Arcady is definitely a weight for age horse here, and he's taken Octagonal right to the wire.
Physically, does a run like that take much out of Octagonal? I mean, what's your experience? What do you have to do with him the day after and a couple of... Do you have to cuddle him back?
Yeah, some days he pulled it. Today, he really knew he had a race. Yesterday, you know, he started before he pulled up fine, but he really knows, you know, he's had a race. But, you know, give him a couple of days, he sort of bounces back pretty well, Bruce, and because when he wins, he knows he wins, and that makes him pull up better.
The Chief Steward confirmed that Octagonal was behind a half stride before the post, and again behind a half stride after it. He's got an amazing record of narrow winning margins. Bruce, I want to ask you, because you know all sports, have you ever... Is there a sport that could equate to the reaction from the crowd yesterday? I mean, the jockey leading the public with 3 cheers, people reaching over the fence to touch the owners. I've never seen scenes like it in my career in racing, not ever.
No, it's right up there with all the greats in any sport, isn't it? When it's almost their farewell lap of honour.
The big question is now, John, what or where does Octagonal go to from here?
Well, I think if he pulls up well and does well a week, he'll run in the Queen Elizabeth, and then, well, whether he goes to Brisbane, that's going to be, you know, debatable. But I think he'll get to the Queen Elizabeth all right, and perhaps it'll be, you know, a good way to go out. But he can't do much more than he's done, you know. I mean, there isn't really much left that the horse can do.
You almost feel like that would have been a good way to finish. Oh, Jack Ingham, who's got something to say about it. You spoke to him, Max, after the race, and this is what he thinks about Octagonal's future.
Well, unbelievable. The people are unbelievable. I can't believe how they just love the horse. I mean, we love him, but it's just a fighter, I think. That's the thing.
Jack, where does he go from here? Will you run him again?
Well, if he pulls up good, he'll probably run in the Ram, in the Queen Elizabeth.
Can you guarantee it'll be any easier than it was today?
Well, it's never easy. That's the problem. It's a heart failure job, Max, you know that.
Good slingers, the Chickens Kings?
They pay well, Bruce. They pay well.
I spoke to Jack this morning also, and he confirmed what he said and what Johnny's saying too, Bruce and Max, that this will probably, all being well, Octagonal's Melba, his final farewell at Randwick, and Jack's on the committee. There'd be a fitting one, wouldn't it?
Bruce, I did put it on Jack later. I said, Jack, why don't you pull the plug now? You can't top that. That was one of the great wins on the Australian Tour. Why don't you stop it? He said, what, don't you want to see him win again?
Actually, the AJC should pay him appearance money to run in the Queen Elizabeth. The race is not worth it, I reckon, if he gets beaten in terms of prize money. I know it's Group 1. John Hawkes, well done. A remarkable chapter in Australian racing yesterday, and you were right there at the forefront.
Thanks very much, Bruce.
It was one of the best days you'll ever see. Keith, I'll talk to you next week. You too, Max. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.